What's up? Oh shoot. I didn't set the stream up. Sorry guys. This is not the song that we want. This is also not the person we want. Sorry guys. Sorry you have to see this man over here. Let's get rid of him forever. We also should set up the actual the actual book. Awkward, funny. We'll change the music later. Sorry guys, what a man. So true. So true. You can tell that I just woke up. Oopsie. Silly. This is Damien. This is not the Metamorphosis. Ooh. Project Gutenberg. Bum 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 bum. Hold on. Before we Say walking on something, I'm sorry, brother reveal stream? That was my boyfriend. No, my actual brother is 15 and thus will never be on my streams because he is 15 and that's a minor. Anyways, I haven't said my hellos. Hello, Cassie. Hello, Apollo. Hello, Not Obscurity. We are alive and well. Yep. Except I'm already congested this early in the morning. This is bad. This is bad. Okay. Yeah, brother reveal stream won't be happening for another like 4 years. If it ever happens. Yeah, my family members are never appearing on stream, bro. They would dox me so hard and they'd be like, what the freak, bro? I'd be like, anyways. We should change the music. What if we downloaded different music? This is welcome to the part of the stream where we actually set up the stream. Let's see. Let's see. Bum 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 bum. This is definitely the music we want to hear while we read the Metamorphosis. Definitely, definitely. Battle music. No, not the one. Story themes. Doesn't Greg have his own theme? Let's listen to that. Where is it? Bon voyage, your mermaid setting sail at last. Where is it? Where is it? Stress study train. Other themes? No. Along with the hierarch? No. Story themes? Who will remember? Oh, have. I swear that, like, this is very appropriate music. Trust. This is very, yes. So true, Dino. So true. I can't find their themes. Because I know they have their individual themes. From the... What's it called? I know they all have their individual themes from the Shichun training arc. But I can't find them, so I guess we're gonna not be listening to that. I guess we're gonna be listening to the normal thingamajig. Welcome to the music stream. Oh, I'll get it, don't worry. Thank. I got you, fam. Thank. For now, we set up the look how drowning in this chair I am. Let's see. Okay. Where am I? Okay. Let's move this a little here. Okay. We're getting things done. We're getting things straight up and done. Where is it? Where is it? There you go. There we go. We did it. We did it. Okay. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Yay! We set up the stream. It only took me about like 5 minutes, which I could have done before stream, but I was too busy eeping. I was an eeper. Yep, that's my excuse. I was eeping. I had no actual good excuse. Sorry guys. Sorry everyone. Yep. That's just how it be. That's just how it be. I can't believe it's already over a second. Guys, run a birthday in 9 days. Run a birthday in 9 days. Anyways, before we actually read the thing, what if we read the copyright license? Copyright license. Okay. Registered trademark can only be used on or associated anyway. Yeah, all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain. States and individuals restricted by copyright law. You're looking there, we don't claim a right to prevent you from copying. Of course, we hope that you support should provide free access to electronic with free sharing. The terms of this for keeping the project easily comply with the terms of this year, if you distribute the same format with its attached full project license and share without charge with others. Okay, without charge. Which means we're turning off Twitch subs. Because that's bad. That's bad, guys. Can I turn off Twitch subs for... Can you put your boyfriend on 2% opacity? Wow, words. Sure, why the hell not? Can I do that on... I should probably mention that we broke up. I still think it's funny to have him there. We can like have him like in the background. Hold on. Just because it's funny. My sense of humor is so twisted and messed up. I can't move him. He's stuck there forever. Bruh. Okay. No. He's there forever. Hold on. There we go. That's the closest we're gonna get. That's the closest we're gonna get. Hold on. Why are we doing this? Why do we have my ex in the background? I don't know. I'm gonna turn a fan on. It's warm. I'm gonna be back. I'm sweaty. Okay, the actual stream. Hello, Fricks. Welcome in. You missed absolutely nothing. We're reading copyright law, so that I can make sure to actually like, you know, not you know, I can do this properly and not what's it called, and not get sued. So we're about to turn off what's it called. Bits and cheering. Can I nibble pin cheers? Okay, just nobody subscribe to me. Because I don't know if I can turn that off. No slow mode. I don't know if there's a way to turn it off. So we're just gonna pretend that maybe I should not have streamed this on Twitch. Oh well. Next stream won't be on Twitch then, because that's awkward. Because Twitch is technically monetized. Oops. Anyways, yes. What have we done so far? We put up the thing. We also put up, Mr. Ex-Boyfriend. He's just in the background. Bugs just like hit game Hollow Knight. My favorite part of Kafka, the part where Gregor Samsa talks about copyright. So true, Lex. Also, hi, howdy. I keep not doing that. I keep not doing the howdy. I'm such a fake fan, guys. Anyways, if I remember the chapters here are longer than Damien, like a lot longer. So, let's see. So, ooh. Okay, we're gonna. How many chapters are there in total? Let's actually look at this. If I remember right, I don't know if it's longer than Damien or the same size. I might distort. Don't do that. Isn't it 80 pages in total or something? Is it? In that case, it's roughly. It might be a little bit shorter than Damien. I remember reading this at lunchtime in like the 3rd grade. I read it like 2 years ago, I think. I read it during my breaks at Ross. It isn't labeled. It is labeled. It's just the chapters are pretty long. Oh. Okay, we might be here for a little while. Might be here for a little while. This is not music. Telling me this is a prior used music track? I'm going to find this. No, it's okay. It's okay. We should change the music. We should change the music. That would be a good. Then in high school, I was Smith, Shumter, Marks. Nice. Let's see. On to 5 battle theme A1. And boss 1 battle theme. This is not the music either. I had no friends. It's okay. You have us now. Ha. Let's see. That's not the theme we want. There we go. Fitting background music for once. So real. No, you guys have us now. You guys have me now. Yeah. I'm so tired, guys. I'm so out of it. I should just turn this into a Zatsudan. Anyways. Nausea. It only flares up when I'm streaming, which is so L. Which is so major L. That's why actually, I was just the pretentious one in the clique. Kind of a bully. That's great. I love that for you, bro. I love that for you. I, in high school, was just some guy for real. I was a band kid. In like the worst way possible. No. I had friends. I had friends outside of band. People knew me outside of band and liked me outside of band. I think. That's how I'd like to think. I don't know. Anyways. There's only 3 chapters. So, we'll see how far we get through chapter 1. This might not be a chaptered stream. Like this might, like, I'm saying this might not be like, it just kind of exists there, the opinionated one. This might be a stream where we like go through the story without paying attention to the chapters. Actually no, because then I don't have a bookmark because it's an ebook. Okay, I guess for purposes, this is going to be a chaptered stream series. Yep. Okay. Anyways, we're yawning, we're stretching, we're getting prepared because we're gonna be here a while. Ow. Okay. One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. He lay on his armor-like back, and if he lifted his head a little, he could see his brown belly, slightly domed and divided by arches into stiff sections. The bedding was hardly able to cover it, and seemed ready to slide off any moment. His many legs, pitifully thin compared with the size of the rest of him, waved about helplessly as he looked. What happened to me, he thought. It wasn't a dream. His room, a proper human room, although a little too small, lay peacefully between its four familiar walls. Why did you put an extra Rotron screen per chapter finish? Oh, you're right. An extra Greg. A collection of textile samples lay spread out on the table. Samsa was a traveling salesman, and above it there hung a picture that he had recently cut out of an illustrated magazine and housed in a nice gilded frame. It showed a lady fitted out with a fur hat and a fur boa who sat upright, raising a heavy fur muff that covered the whole of her lower arm towards the viewer. Gregor then turned to look at the window at the dull weather. Drops of rain could be heard hitting the pane, which made him feel quite sad. How about if I sleep a little bit longer and forget all this nonsense, he thought. But that was something he was unable to do because he was used to sleeping on his right, and in his present state couldn't get into that position. However hard he threw himself onto his right, he always rolled back to where he was. He must have tried it 100 times, shut his eyes so that he wouldn't have to look at the floundering legs, and only stopped when he began to feel a mild, dull pain there that he had never felt before. Oh God, he thought, what a strenuous career it is that I've chosen. Traveling day in and day out, doing business like this takes much more effort than doing your own business at home. And on top of that, there's the curse of traveling, worries about making crane connections, bad and irregular food, contact with different people all the time so that you can never get to know anyone or become friendly with them. It can all go to hell. He felt a slight itch up on his belly, pushed himself slowly up on his back towards the headboard so that he could lift his head better, found where the itch was, and saw that it was covered with lots of little white spots which he didn't know what to make of. When he tried to feel the place with one of his legs, he drew it quickly back because as soon as he touched it, he was overcome by a cold shudder. He slid back into his former position. Getting up early all the time, he thought, it makes you stupid. You've got to get enough sleep. Other traveling salesmen live a life of luxury. For instance, whenever I go back to the guest house during the morning to copy out the contract, these gentlemen are always still sitting there eating their breakfasts. I ought to just try that with my boss. I'd get kicked out on the spot. But who knows? Maybe that would be the best thing for me. If I didn't have my parents to think about, I'd have given in my notice a long time ago. I'd have gone up to the boss and told him just what I think, tell him everything I would, let him know just what I feel. He'd fall right off his desk. And it's a funny sort of business to be sitting up there at your desk, talking down at your subordinates from up there, especially when you have to go right up close because the boss is hard of hearing. Well, there's still some hope. Once I've got the money together to pay off my parents' debt to him, another 5 or 6 years, I suppose, that's definitely what I'll do. That's what'll make big change. First of all, though, I've got to get up. My train leaves at 5. And he looked over at the alarm clock, taking on the chest of drawers. God in heaven, he thought. It was 6:30 and the hands were quietly moving forwards. It was even later than 7:30, more like 7:45. Had the alarm clock not rung? He could see from the bed that it had been set for 4 o'clock, as it should have been. It certainly must have rung. Yes, but was it possible to quietly sleep through the furniture rattling noise? True, he had not slept peacefully, but probably all the more deeply because of that. What should he do now? The next train went at 7. If he were to catch that, he would have to rush like mad if the collection of samples was still not packed, and he did not at all feel particularly fresh and lively. And even if he did catch the train, he would not avoid his boss's anger, as the office assistant would have been there to see the 5 o'clock train go. He would have put in his report about Gregor's not being there a long time ago. The office assistant was the boss's man, spineless, and with no understanding. What about if he reported sick? But that would be extremely strange and suspicious, as in 5 years of service, Gregor had never once yet been ill. His boss would certainly come round with the doctor from the medical insurance company, accuse his parents of having a lazy son, and accept the doctor's recommendation not to make any claims the doctors believed that no one was ever ill but that many were workshy. And what's more, would he have been entirely wrong in this case? Gregor did, in fact, apart from excessive sleepiness after sleeping for so long, feel completely well and even much hungrier than normal. The community presented an offering of 1,300 paid Lucia. I got the song into the PM channel. Yay! Yay! Thank you, Apollo. You're so slay. Yay! Smoke war theme. Smoke war theme. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. Bum 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 bum. Oh, okay. I guess we're gonna do that now. Okay. Let's see, just to make sure I'm downloading the right file. Okay, I am downloading the right file. That's nice to know. Okay. Ba-da-bum. Bum. 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 Where do I have? Where is my? Where is my list? Limbus, OST, Smoke War story theme. There we go. There we go. We out here. Close this tab. Smoke War story theme. There we go. This is gonna be on loop for the next while, and that's okay. Yawn. Okay. Gotta be all stretched out. That's not the word that I meant to say. I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. But we're stretching because shrimp mode is bad. Yes. Don't use the words I use. Anyways. He was still hurriedly thinking all this through, unable to decide to get out of the bed, when the clock struck 7:15. There was a cautious knock at the door near his head. "Gregor," somebody called. It was his mother. "It's 7:15. Didn't you want to go somewhere?" That gentle voice. Gregor was shocked when he heard his own voice answering. It could hardly be recognized as the voice he had before. As if from deep inside him, there was a painful and uncontrollable squeaking mixed in with it. The words could be made out at first, but then there was a sort of echo which made them unclear, leaving the hearer unsure whether he had heard properly or not. Gregor had wanted to give a full answer and explain everything, but in the circumstances contented himself with saying, "Yes, mother, yes. Thank you, I'm getting up now." The change in Gregor's voice probably could not be noticed outside the wooden door, as his mother was satisfied with this explanation and shuffled away. But the short conversation made the other members of the family aware that Gregor, against their expectations, was still at home, and soon his father came knocking at one of the side doors, gently, but with his fist. "Gregor, Gregor," he called. "What's wrong?" And after a short while he called again with a warning deepness in his voice. "Gregor, Gregor." At the other side of the door his sister came plaintively. "Gregor, aren't you well? Do you need anything?" Gregor answered to both sides. "I'm ready now," making an effort to remove all the strangeness from his voice by enunciating very carefully and putting long pauses between each individual word. His father went back to his breakfast, but his sister whispered, "Gregor, open the door, I beg of you." Gregor, however, had no thought of opening the door, and instead congratulated himself for his cautious habit, acquired from his traveling, of locking all doors at night, even when he was at home. The first thing he wanted to do was to get up in peace without being disturbed, to get dressed, and most of all to have his breakfast. Only then would he consider what to do next, as he was well aware that he would not bring his thoughts to any sensible conclusions by lying in bed. He remembered that he had often felt a slight pain in bed, perhaps caused by lying awkwardly, but that he had always turned out to be pure imagination, and he wondered how his imaginings would slowly resolve themselves today. He did not have the slightest doubt that the change in his voice was nothing more than the first sign of a severe cold, which was an occupational hazard for traveling salesmen. It was a simple matter to throw off the covers. He had only to blow himself up a little, and they fell off by themselves. But it became difficult after that, especially as he was so exceptionally broad. He would have used his arms and his hands to push himself up, but instead of them he had only all those little legs continuously moving in different directions, and which he was moreover unable to control. If he wanted to bend one of them, then that was the first one that would stretch itself out, and if he finally managed to do what he wanted with that leg, all the others seemed to be set free and would move about painfully. "This is something that can't be done in bed," Gregor said to himself, "so don't keep trying to do it." The first thing he wanted to do was to get the lower part of his body out of the bed, but he had never seen this lower part, and could not imagine what it looked like. It turned out to be too hard to move. It went so slowly, and finally, almost in a frenzy, when he carelessly shoved himself forwards with all the force he could gather, he chose the wrong direction, hit hard against the lower bedpost, and learned from the burning pain he felt that the lower part of his body might well at present be the most sensitive. So then he tried to get the top part of his body out of the bed first, carefully turning his head to the side. This he managed quite easily, and despite its breadth and its weight, the bulk of his body eventually followed slowly in the direction of his head. But when he had at last got his head out of the bed and into the fresh air, it occurred to him that if he let himself fall, it would be a miracle if his head were not injured. So he became afraid to carry on pushing himself forward the same way. And he could not knock himself out now at any price. Better to stay in bed than lose consciousness. It took just as much effort to get back to where he had been earlier, But when he lay there sighing, and was once more watching his legs as they struggled against each other even harder than before, as that was possible, he could think of no way of bringing peace and order to this chaos. He told himself once more that it was not possible for him to stay in bed, and that the most sensible thing to do would be to get free of it in whatever way he could, at whatever sacrifice. At the same time, though, he did not forget to remind himself that calm consideration was much better than rushing to desperate conclusions. At times like this, he would direct his eyes to the window and look out as clearly as he could, but unfortunately, even the other side of the narrow street was enveloped in morning fog, and the view had little confidence or cheer to offer him. 7 o'clock already, he said to himself when the clock struck again. 7 o'clock, and there's still a fog like this. And he lay there quietly a while longer, breathing lightly as if he perhaps expected the total stillness to bring things back to their real and natural state. But then he said to himself, "Before it strikes 7:15, I'll definitely have to have got properly out of bed. And by then somebody will have come round from work to ask what happened to me as well, as they opened up at work before 7 o'clock. And so he set himself to the task of swinging the entire length of his body out of the bed all at the same time. If he succeeded in falling out of bed in this way and kept his head raised as he did so, he could probably avoid injuring it. His back seemed to be quite hard, and probably nothing would happen to it falling onto the carpet. His main concern was for the loud noise he was bound to make, which even though all the doors would probably raise concern if not alarm. But it was something that had to be risked. Okay. Water. That's a good idea. When Gregor was already sticking halfway out of the bed, the new method was more of a game than an effort. All he had to do was rock back and forth. It occurred to him how simple everything would be if somebody came to help him. 2 strong people. He had his father and the maid in mind, would have been more than enough. They would only have to push their arms under the dome of his back, peel him away from the bed, bend down with the load, and then be patient and careful as he swung over onto the floor, where, hopefully, the little legs would find a use. Should he really call for help, though, even apart from the fact that all the doors were locked? Despite all the difficulty he was in, he could not suppress a smile at this thought. After a while, he had already moved so far across that it would have been hard for him to keep his balance if he rocked too hard. The time was now 7:10, and he would have to make a final decision very soon. Then there was a ring at the door of the flat. "That'll be someone from work," he said to himself, and froze very still, although his little legs only became all the more lively as they danced around. For a moment, everything remained quiet. "They're not opening the door," Gregor said to himself, caught in some nonsensical hope. But then, of course, the maid's firm steps went to the door as ever and opened it. Gregor only needed to hear the visitor's first words of greeting, and he knew who it was, the chief clerk himself. Why did Gregor have to be the only one condemned to work for a company where they immediately became highly suspicious at the slightest shortcoming? Were all employees, every one of them, louts? Was there not one of them who was faithful and devoted, who would go so mad with pangs of conscience that he couldn't get out of bed if he didn't spend at least a couple of hours in the morning on company business? Was it really not enough to let one of the trainees make inquiries, assuming inquiries were even necessary? Did the chief clerk have to come himself? And did they have to show the whole innocent family that this was so suspicious that only the chief clerk could be trusted to have the wisdom to investigate it? And more because these thoughts had made him upset than through any proper decision, he swung himself with all his force out of the bed. There was a loud thump, but it wasn't really a loud noise. His fall was softened a little by the carpet, and Gregor's back was also more elastic than he had thought, which made the sound muffled and not too noticeable. He had not held his head carefully enough, though, and hit it as he fell. Annoyed and in pain, he turned it and rubbed it against the carpet. "Something's fallen down in there," said the chief clerk in the room on the left. Gregor tried to imagine whether something of the sort that had happened to him today could ever happen to the chief clerk too. He had to concede that it was possible. But as if in gruff to reply to this question, the chief clerk's firm footsteps in his highly polished boots could now be heard in the adjoining room. From the room on his right, Gregor's sister whispered to him to let him know. "Gregor, the chief clerk is here." "Yes, I know," said Gregor to himself, but without daring to raise his voice loud enough for his sister to hear him. "Gregor," said his father now from the room to his left, "the chief clerk has come round and wants to know why you didn't leave on the early train. We don't know what to say to him, and anyway, he wants to speak to you personally, so please open up the door. I'm sure he'll be good enough to forgive the untidiness of your room." Then the chief clerk called, "Good morning, Mr. Samsa." "He isn't well," said his mother to the chief clerk, while his father continued to speak through the door. "He isn't well, please believe me. Why else would Gregor have missed a train? The lad only ever thinks about the business. It nearly makes me cross the way he never goes out in the evenings. He's been in town for a week now, but stayed home every evening." Rena, I'm alive. Oh my god, Anti! What's up, bro? We're reading the Metamorphosis. So far, we're at the point where Greg's... We're gonna get a recap? Yes. So far, Greg has woken up. He has now a bug. And... which is really so awkward for him. And he's like, damn, I'm gonna be late for work. Which is so, like... He's turned into a bug and the only thing he can think about is work, you know? And so far, his dad has been bro the entire time. His mom hasn't really had much screen time. His sister has had more screen time than his mom. His sister was like, Greg, are you okay? And he's like, I don't know. Capitalism, truly. And yeah. So far, we're at the part where his boss came over to check on him. But even his boss... Even he is like, why did my boss come? Why couldn't they have, like, picked an intern, bro? Why the boss? So that's that. Yep. And so now we're dealing with him getting out of bed because he has been struggling with getting out of bed, literally, because it was not working out very well. Yep. Okay. Hem. He sits with us in the kitchen and just reads the paper or studies train timetables. His idea of relaxation is working with his fret saw. He's made a little frame, for instance. It only took him 2 or 3 evenings. You'll be amazed how nice it is. It's hanging up in his room. You'll see it as soon as Gregor opens the door. Yo, I've been reading to read Kafka, so thanks. Yeah, bro, I've got you. It's hanging up in his room. You'll see it as soon as Gregor opens the door. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. We wouldn't have been able to get Gregor to open the door by ourselves. He's so stubborn, and I'm sure he isn't well. He said this morning that he is, but he isn't. I'll be there in a moment, said Gregor slowly and thoughtfully, but without moving so that he would not miss any word of the conversation. Well, I can't think of any other way of explaining it, Mrs. Samsa, said the chief clerk. I hope it's nothing serious. But on the other hand, I must say that if we people in commerce ever become slightly unwell, then, fortunately or unfortunately as you like, we simply have to overcome it because of business considerations. Can the chief clerk come in to see you now, then? Asked his father impatiently, knocking at the door again. No, said Gregor. In the room on his right, there followed a painful silence. In the room on his left, his sister began to cry. So why did his sister not go and join the others? She had probably only just got up, and had not even begun to get dressed. And why was she crying? Was it because he had not got up, and had not let the chief clerk in? Because he was in danger of losing his job, and if that happened, his boss would once more pursue their parents with the same demands as before? There was no need to worry about things like that yet. Gregor was still there, and had not the slightest intention of abandoning his family. For the time being, he just lay there on the carpet, and no one who knew the condition he was in would seriously have expected him to let the chief clerk in. It was only a minor discourtesy, and a suitable excuse could easily be found for it later on. It was not something for which Gregor much more sensible to leave him now in peace instead of disturbing him with talking at him and crying. But the others didn't know what was happening. They were worried. That would excuse their behavior. The chief clerk now raised his voice. Mr. Samsa, he called to him. What is wrong? You barricade yourself in your room. Give us no more than yes or no for an answer. You are causing serious and unnecessary concern to your parents and you fail, and I mention this just by the way. You fail to carry out your business duties in a way that is quite unheard of. I'm speaking here on behalf of your parents and of your employer, and really must request a clear and immediate explanation. I am astonished, quite astonished. I thought I knew you as a common, sensible person, and now you suddenly seem to be showing off with peculiar whims. This morning, your employer did suggest a possible reason for your failure to appear, it's true. It had to do with the money that was recently entrusted to you. But I came near to giving him my word of honor that that could not be the right explanation. But now that I see your incomprehensible stubbornness, I no longer feel any wish whatsoever to intercede on your behalf. And nor is your position all that secure. I had originally intended to say all this to you in private, but since you caused me to waste my time here for no good reason, I don't see why your parents should not also learn of it. Your tone over has been very unsatisfactory of late. I grant you that it's not the time of year to do especially good business. We recognize that. But there simply is no time of year to do no business at all, Mr. Samsa. We cannot allow there to be. But sir, called Gregor, beside himself and forgetting all else in the excitement. I'll open up immediately. Just a moment. I'm slightly unwell. An attack of dizziness. I haven't been able to get up. I'm still in bed now. I'm quite fresh again now, though. I'm just getting out of bed. Just a moment. Be patient. It's not quite as easy as I thought. I'm quite alright now, though. It's shocking what can suddenly happen to a person. I was quite alright last night. My parents know about it, perhaps better than me. I had a small symptom of it last night already. They must have noticed it. I don't know why I didn't let you know at work. But you always think you can get over an illness without staying at home. Please, don't make my parents suffer. There's no basis for any of the accusations you're making. Nobody's ever said a word to me about any of these things. Maybe you haven't read the latest contracts I set in. I'll set off with the 8 o'clock train as well. These few hours of rest have given me strength. You don't need to wait, sir. I'll be in the office soon after you, and please be so good as to tell the boss and recommend me to him. And while Gregor gushed out these words, hardly knowing what he was saying, he made his way over to the chest of drawers. This was easily done, probably because of the practice he had already had in bed, where he now tried to get himself upright. He really did want to open the door, really did want to let them see him and to speak with the chief clerk. The others were being so insistent, and he was curious to learn what they would say when they caught sight of him. If they were shocked, then it would no longer be Gregor's responsibility, and he could rest. If, however, they took everything calmly, he would still have no reason to be upset. And if he hurried, he really could be at the station for 8 o'clock. The first few times he tried to climb up on the smooth chest of the drawers, he just slid down again. But he finally gave himself one last swing and stood there upright. The lower part of his body was in serious pain, but he no longer gave any attention to it. Now he let himself fall against the back of a nearby chair and held tightly to the edges of it with his little legs. By now he had also calmed down, and kept quiet so that he could listen to what the chief clerk was saying. "Did you understand a word of all that?" the chief clerk asked his parents. "Surely he's not trying to make fools of us." "Oh God," called his mother, who was already in tears. "He could be seriously ill and we're making him suffer." Greta, she then cried. "Mother," his sister called from the other side. They communicated across Gregor's room. "They'll have to go for the doctor straight away. Gregor is ill. Quick, get the doctor." "Did you hear the way Gregor spoke just now? That was the voice of an animal," said the chief clerk with a calmness that was in contrast with his mother's screams. Anna, his father followed into the kitchen through the entrance hall, clapping his hands. "Get a locksmith here now." The two girls, their skirts swishing, immediately ran out through the hall, wrenching open the front door of the flat as they went. How had his sister managed to get dressed so quickly? There was no sound of the door banging shut again. They must have left it open. People often do in homes where something awful has happened. Gregor, in contrast, had become much calmer, so they couldn't understand his words any more, although they seemed clear enough to him, clearer than before. Perhaps his ears had become used to the sound. They had realized, though, that there was something wrong with him, and they were ready to help. The first response to his situation had been confident and wise, and that made him feel better. He felt that he had been drawn back and among people, and from the doctor and the locksmith he expected great and surprising achievements, although he did not really distinguish one from the other. Whatever was said next would be crucial, so, in order to make his voice as clear as possible, he coughed a little, but taking care not to do this too loudly, as even this might well sound different from the way that a human coughs, and he was no longer sure he could judge this for himself. Meanwhile, it had become very quiet in the next room. Perhaps his parents were sat at the table whispering with the chief clerk, or perhaps they were all pressed against the door and listening. Gregor slowly pushed his way over to the door with the chair. Once there, he let go of it and threw himself onto the floor, holding himself upright against it using the adhesive on the tips of his legs. He rested there a little while to recover from the effort involved, and then set himself to the task of turning the key in the lock of his mouth. He seemed, unfortunately, to have no proper teeth. How was he, then, to grasp the key? But the lack of teeth was, of course, made up for with a very strong jaw. Using the jaw, he really was able to start the key turning, ignoring the fact that he must have been causing some kind of damage, as the brown fluid came from his mouth, flowed over the key, and dripped onto the floor. "Listen," said the chief clerk in the next room. "He's turning the key." Gregor was greatly encouraged by this, but they all should have been calling to him, his father and mother too. "Well done, Gregor," they should have cried. "Keep at it. Keep hold of the lock." And with the idea that they were all excitedly following his efforts, he bit on the key with all his strength, paying no attention to the pain he was causing himself. As the key turned around, he turned around the lock with it, only holding himself upright with his mouth, and hung onto the key or pushed it down again with the whole weight of his body as needed. The clear sound of the lock as it snapped back was Gregor's sign that he could break his concentration, and as he regained his breath he said to himself, "So, I didn't need the locksmith after all." Then he laid his head on the handle of the door to open it completely. Is he like a full-on cockroach? Yes, he is. At least I assume so. Stretch. Okay. Because he had to open the door in this way, it was already wide open before he could be seen. He had first... Where am I? I lost my place while I was reading. That's kind of funny. Anyways, water. He had first to slowly turn himself around one of the double doors, and he had to do it very carefully if he did not want to fall flat on his back before entering the room. He was still occupied with this difficult movement, unable to pay attention to everything else, when he heard the chief clerk exclaim aloud, "Oh," which sounded like the soughing of the wind. Then, is this literal or like hallucinations? I assume it's literal. Sounded like the soughing of the wind. Now he also saw him. He was the nearest to the door, his hand pressed against his open mouth and slowly retreating as if driven by a steady and invisible force. Gregor's mother, her hair still disheveled from bed despite the chief clerk's being there, looked at his father. Then she unfolded her arms, took 2 steps forward towards Gregor, and sank down onto the floor into her skirts that spread themselves out around her as her head disappeared down onto her breast. His father looked hostile, and clenched his fist as if wanting to knock Gregor back into his room. Then he looked uncertainly around the living room, covered his eyes with his hands, and wept so that his powerful chest shook. So Gregor did not go into the room, but leant against this inside of the other door, which was still held bolted in place. In this way, only half of his body— why am I not moving? Whatever, bro. Could be seen, along with his head above it, which he leant over to one side as he peered out the others. Meanwhile, the day had become much lighter. Part of the endless gray-black building on the other side of the street, which was a hospital, could be seen quite clearly with the austere and regular line of windows piercing its facade. The rain was still falling, now throwing down large individual droplets which hit the ground one at a time. The washing up from breakfast lay on the table. There was so much of it because, for Gregor's father, breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and he would stretch it out for several hours as he sat reading a number of different newspapers. On the wall exactly opposite, there was a photograph of Gregor. He could see onto the landing and the stairs where they began their way down below. "Now then," said Gregor, well aware that he was the only one to have kept calm. "I'll get dressed straight away, pack up my samples, and set off. Will you please just let me leave? You can see," he said to the chief clerk, "that I'm not stubborn, and I like to do my job. Being a commercial traveler is arduous, but without traveling, I couldn't earn my living. So where are you going? In the office?" "Yes." "Will you report everything accurately then? It's quite possible for someone to be temporarily unable to work, but that's just the right time to remember what's been achieved in the past and consider that later on. Once the difficulty has been removed, you'll certainly work with all the more diligence and concentration. You're well aware that I'm seriously in debt to our employer, as well as having to look after my parents and my sister, so that I'm trapped in a difficult situation, but I will work my way out of it again. Please don't make things any harder for me than they are already, and don't take sides against me at the office. I know that nobody likes the travelers. They think we earn an enormous wage as well as having a soft time of it. That's just prejudice, but they have no particular reason to think better of it. But you, sir, you have a better overview than the rest of the staff, in fact, if I can say this in confidence. A better overview than the boss himself. It's very easy for a businessman like him to make mistakes about his employees and judge them more harshly than he should. And you're also well aware that we travelers spend almost the whole year away from the office, so that we can very easily fall victim to gossip and chance and groundless complaints. And it's almost impossible to defend yourself from that sort of thing. We don't usually even hear about them, or if at all, it's when we arrive back home exhausted from a trip, and that's when we feel the harmful effects of what's been going on without even knowing what caused them. Please, don't go away. I'll at least first say something to show you that show that you grant that I'm at least partially right." Okay, you cut out for a second. No! No! Freaking restream, bro. Freaking internet, bro. Okay. How far are we into this? We have quite a ways away. Oh no. We're quite close. But the chief clerk had turned away as soon as Gregor had started to speak, and, with protruding lips, only stared back at him over his trembling shoulders as he left. He did not keep still for a moment while Gregor was speaking. "It's good now, yay!" but moved steadily towards the door without taking his eyes off him. He moved very gradually, as if there had been some secret prohibition on leaving the room. It was only when he had reached the entrance hall that he made a sudden movement, drew his foot from the living room, and rushed forward in a panic. In the hall, he stretched his right hand far out towards the stairway as if out there was some supernatural force waiting to save him. Gregor realized that it was out of the question to let the chief clerk go away in this mood if his position in the firm was not to be put into extreme danger. That was something his parents did not understand very well. Over the years, they had become convinced that this job would provide for Gregor for his entire life. And besides, They had so much to worry about at present that they had lost sight of any thought for the future. Gregor, though, did think about the future. The chief clerk had to be held back, calmed down, convinced, and finally won over. The future of Gregor and his family depended on it. If only his sister were here. She was clever. She was already in tears while Gregor was still lying peacefully on his back. And the chief clerk was the lover of women. Surely she could persuade him. She would close the front door in the entrance hall, and talk him out of his shocked state. But his sister was not there. Gregor would have to do the job himself. And without considering that he still was not familiar with how well he could move about in this present state, or that his speech still might not, or probably would not, be understood, he let go of the door, pushed himself through the opening, tried to reach the chief clerk on the landing, who, ridiculously, was holding onto the banister with both hands. But Gregor fell immediately over, and, with little scream as he sought something to hold onto, landed on his numerous little legs. Hardly had that happened then, for the first time that day, he began to feel all right with his body. The little legs had the solid ground under them. To his pleasure, they did exactly as he told them. They were even making the effort to carry him where he wanted to go, and he was soon believing that all his sorrows would soon finally be an end. He held back the urge to move, but swayed from side to side as he crouched there on the floor. His mother was not far away in front of him, seemed at first quite engrossed in herself, but then she suddenly jumped up with her hands outstretched and her fingers spread, shouting, "Help, for pity's sake, help!" The way she held her head suggested she wanted to see Gregor better, but the unthinking way she was hurrying backward showed that he did not. She had forgotten that the table was behind her with all the breakfast things on it. When she reached the table, she sat quickly down on it without knowing what she was doing, without even seeming to notice that the coffee pot had been knocked over and a gush of coffee was pouring down onto the carpet. "Mother, mother," said Gregor gently, looking up at her. He had completely forgotten the chief clerk for the moment, but he could not help himself snapping in the air with his jaws and said, Chief clerk had already reached the stairs, with his chin on the bench. Chief clerk had already reached the stairs, with his chin on the bench. He made a run with back for the last time. Wanted to be sure. Gregor made a run for him. The chief clerk wanted to be sure of reaching him. As he leapt down, the chief clerk must have expected something. As he leapt down, several shots were flying all around the staircase. His shots were flying all around the staircase. The flight of the chief clerk seemed, unfortunately, to put Gregor's father into relatively self-control. Until then, he had been relatively self-controlled. Rip, I now. Ooh. Stop. No. Your voice. No. What happened? Stop. What happened? What happened? Animal court. What happened? Animal court. No. Renata. No. You're distorting. No. What? You're distorting. No. What? What? What does it sound like? What does it sound like? I'm so curious. What does it sound like? I'm so curious. there's so much latency on YouTube, bro.